basketball world has been turned upside down, and the name on everyone's lips is Caitlin Clark. Overnight, she didn't just become the face of women's basketball, she redefined what it means to be a star athlete. Reports confirmed that Clark secured a groundbreaking $25 million endorsement with Nike, and shortly after, whispers of an even bigger deal surfaced. An 8-year contract worth $28 million. Numbers like that don't just set records. They send shockwaves across the entire sports industry. For many players, that kind of contract would be the peak of their careers, the kind of headline that lingers for weeks. But Caitlin Clark isn't like most athletes. She didn't step into this deal simply to collect a paycheck. She wanted to rewrite the rules, to prove that power in sports isn't just about stats, but about how you use your influence. From the start of her rookie season, Clark had already shattered records. Her deal outpaced contracts some seasoned NBA veterans had signed, instantly cementing her as a marketing powerhouse. Her name filled arenas, her shots drew massive audiences, and her jersey sales rivaled the biggest names in the game. But the real shock didn't come from the contract itself. It came from what she did with it. Only days after signing, Nike organized what seemed like a small, intimate event in Indianapolis. Lights, cameras, and whispers set the stage. To most, it looked like another routine brand celebration. Photo ops, highlight reels, maybe a shoe unveiling. Sophie Cunningham, Clark's teammate, thought she was simply there to support Caitlin in the spotlight. She had no idea she was about to witness history. As the event began, the room darkened. A short film lit up the giant screen, tracing Caitlin's journey from her high school gym floors in Iowa to the roaring arenas of the WNBA. The video didn't sugarcoat the path. It showed the bruises, the endless criticism, the doubters who said she couldn't rise to the top. But it also highlighted her grit. The buzzer-beating shots, the record crowds, the unwavering determination that had brought her to this very moment. When the video ended, Nike representatives stepped forward, presenting Clark with a gold-stitched jersey, an honor typically reserved for legends of the game. The room braced itself for her to bask in the glory, to own the moment as hers alone. Instead, Clark did something no one expected. She turned, not to the cameras, but to Sophie Cunningham. "This isn't just for me," she said, her voice firm, steady, and filled with conviction. "This is for every woman who shows up, fights hard, and protects her team." The air in the room shifted. This wasn't scripted PR. This wasn't rehearsed. It was raw, deliberate, and deeply personal. Moments later, Nike staff brought out a sleek black and gold shoebox. Inside was a custom pair of Sophie Cunningham Player Edition sneakers, designed in Indiana Fever colors. On the heel, stitched boldly, were the words, "No backing down." But the real surprise was tucked inside the box, a contract. Not a gift, not a symbolic gesture, but a legitimate Nike deal. Caitlin Clark had used her influence to bring Sophie under the Nike umbrella, securing her own teammate a brand partnership she had never expected. In an industry notorious for cutthroat competition, where every sponsorship dollar, every second of screen time, every highlight clip is hard-fought, Clark's move was nothing short of revolutionary. She wasn't just sharing the spotlight, she was changing the culture. Why Sophie Cunningham? The answer traces back to Clark's very first weeks in the WNBA. Her arrival was anything but gentle. Cameras followed her every move. Fans hailed her as the league's golden goose, while critics sharpened their knives. On the court, the physicality was ruthless. Players like Angel Reese and DeJounte Carrington seemed determined to test her, sometimes with words, often with hard contact. It was baptism by fire, and the spotlight was blinding. Through that storm, one player consistently stood by her side, Sophie Cunningham. Sophie wasn't just a teammate, she was a shield. She was the one stepping into heated confrontations, the one taking the fouls that might have knocked Caitlin out of rhythm. She made it clear to the rest of the league, if the refs wouldn't protect Caitlin, she would. Caitlin never forgot that. Loyalty to her wasn't something to be acknowledged with a quick soundbite or a token tribute. It demanded action. And when the opportunity came, she used the biggest moment of her young career to honor the teammate who had carried her through the fire. This wasn't a marketing ploy. This wasn't staged. This was Clark showing the world that loyalty still mattered, that solidarity could exist even in a league built on competition. Nike saw it too. They hadn't just signed a sharpshooter who could fill arenas. They had invested in a leader, a culture shifter, a young woman whose choices off the court were just as impactful as her performances on it. When Nike outbid Adidas, Puma, and Under Armour for her signature, they weren't just paying for her highlight reels. They were buying into her vision, a vision where loyalty sells just as much as talent, where sisterhood can be as powerful as stardom. That's why when Caitlin Clark held that golden jersey in her hands, she didn't slip it on. She passed it to Sophie. When she revealed those sneakers stitched with "no backing down," she wasn't just gifting a pair of shoes. She was cementing a partnership. And when she revealed that contract, she wasn't just signing Sophie into Nike, she was signing a new chapter for women's sports. Because in that moment, it wasn't about Caitlin Clark. It was about what she represented. A new era. A rewriting of the culture. A future where power is shared, not hoarded. And so, the question still lingers. Why Sophie? Was it pure loyalty, strategy, or something deeper? Perhaps it doesn't matter. What matters is this. Caitlin Clark proved that true. Greatness isn't measured by what you keep, but by what you give away. It wasn't just basketball history unfolding. It was the very definition of leadership evolving in real time. And at the heart of it stood Sophie Cunningham, blindsided by a wave of loyalty that would change her life forever. Sophie's tearful. Shocked Sophie Cunningham didn't just shed tears that day. She was overwhelmed. The look on her face told a story no camera could fabricate. It wasn't a performance. It was the unfiltered reaction of someone who had spent years doing the unseen work, absorbing hits, stepping into scuffles, shielding her teammate. Finally, being recognized on the grandest stage possible. She hadn't expected it. She hadn't campaigned for it. She wasn't chasing headlines or accolades. But Caitlin Clark decided the world would know her worth. To outsiders, the question seemed obvious. Why Sophie? Why, with the biggest rookie contract in WNBA history, would Caitlin use her first monumental brand moment not to elevate herself, but to shine a spotlight on her teammate? The answer wasn't about convenience. It wasn't about optics. It was about loyalty forged in sweat, bruises, and silent acts of protection that never made the highlight reels. Sophie, the silent protector. Every superstar dreams of having a teammate like Sophie Cunningham. Few ever do. She wasn't just another player on the court. She was the muscle behind Caitlin's meteoric rise. Sophie was the one who threw herself into heated scrambles, who took fouls that should have ended up on Clark's stat sheet, who confronted reporters when they crossed a line. If you've watched the Indiana Fever this season, you've seen her, shadowing Caitlin like an unassigned bodyguard, making sure opponents understood one thing clearly. If the refs won't protect her, I will. Her loyalty wasn't subtle. Sometimes it meant crashing into an opponent. Sometimes it meant taking a hit that left her sprawled on the hardwood. In those moments, Sophie became Caitlin's enforcer, the unspoken warning that her teammate wasn't alone. But here's the key. Sophie never asked for recognition. She never spun it into a social media stunt or demanded her name in the headlines. She played her role, quietly, relentlessly, and without expectation. Caitlin, however, saw it all. And at that Nike event, she made sure everyone else saw it too. In Teen Centuries, Front of executives, cameras, and fellow players, Caitlin's words cut through the noise. People talk about the plays I make, but Sophie makes the plays no one sees. Then came the reveal. The custom Sophie Cunningham Player Edition sneakers, stitched with the battle cry, "No backing down," and inside that shoebox, tucked where no one expected it, was a contract. Not a ceremonial gift, but a legitimate Nike deal Caitlin had fought to secure as part of her own endorsement terms. It was unprecedented. No rookie had ever pulled another player into an endorsement deal with them. It wasn't just generous, it was revolutionary. A cultural reset. The ripple effect was immediate. Inside the Fever locker room, younger players suddenly had a model of what real loyalty looked like. Veterans began rethinking what it meant to leverage their platforms, and even rivals, often quick to criticize, admitted the gesture was unlike anything they'd ever seen in professional sports. This wasn't branding. This wasn't ego. This was loyalty weaponized, not to tear down, but to lift up. In a league where every inch of spotlight is contested, Caitlin Clark had reset the rules of the game. But this wasn't just about Sophie. It wasn't even just about the Fever. It was about Nike's gamble, and what they saw in Caitlin that went far beyond three-pointers and sold-out arenas. Why Nike bet on Caitlin Clark? $25 million, a figure so massive it eclipsed every sneaker deal in WNBA history. But the number wasn't what mattered most. What mattered was the statement Caitlin made with it. Caitlin hasn't just been playing basketball, she's been transforming the atmosphere around the sport itself. With her arrival, the WNBA shifted, energy surged, new rivalries ignited, arenas sold out. The league finally had a face that transcended basketball and seeped into culture. Nike didn't sign her simply because she can drain logo threes from absurd distances. They saw something bigger. They saw a cultural shift in motion. They saw a rookie unafraid to lead with loyalty in a league filled with politics, egos, and constant scrutiny. They weren't just buying a scorer. They were investing in a movement. And then came the condition, the line in the sand that stunned even seasoned brand executives. Caitlin Clark, a rookie, stared down one of the biggest corporations on earth and said, "I'll sign, but Sophie Cunningham signs with me." Most athletes wouldn't dare. Caitlin demanded it, and Nike didn't balk for a second. They embraced it, not as a concession, but as brilliance. Because in a sports industry drowning in hollow slogans and over-polished PR campaigns, loyalty is gold, sisterhood sells, authenticity sells. From that moment, it wasn't just a contract. It was a movement, Nike's next move. The swoosh's creative machine immediately went into overdrive. Campaigns were drafted, storyboards built. The message was simple, built for each other. The ads won't just sell sneakers, they'll sell the bond between two teammates. Expect commercials showcasing grit, unseen plays, shared sacrifice. Expect merchandise that feels like more than just fabric and logos. Fans won't just be buying gear. They'll be buying into a story of loyalty that resonates far beyond the court and the sneakers themselves. They're already historic. For the first time in WNBA history, a player's shoe release will be directly tied to a teammate's endorsement. The Sophie Player Edition, drenched in Fever colors and stitched with "No backing down," is destined to fly off shelves the moment it drops. But Caitlin's vision doesn't stop with shoes or commercials. She's thinking bigger, about the game's future, about young girls who dream of playing, but don't yet have the resources to chase that dream. Building beyond the court. Behind the scenes, Clark has been quietly developing a mentorship program aimed at underfunded communities. It's not a charity stunt. It's a long-term plan, free clinics, pro-level training sessions, gear drops, and one-on-one mentorship from WNBA athletes, including herself and Sophie. It's about creating real access, real opportunity, and real inspiration for the next generation. Not just for a photo op, but for impact that lasts. This is the Caitlin Clark that doesn't always make the front page. The one not just orchestrating plays on the hardwood, but orchestrating change beyond it. And all of it, every sneaker, every speech, every act of loyalty, leads to a single undeniable truth. Caitlin Clark is more than a rookie sensation. She's the architect of a new culture in women's sports. Caitlin Clark isn't just using her fame for herself. She's leveraging her influence, her platform, and yes, her $25 million Nike deal to make sure success spreads beyond her. That's the magic of Caitlin Clark. She knows true stardom isn't about shining alone. Her loyalty isn't a new discovery. Since stepping into the WNBA, she's shown the world how she uplifts the people around her. While her deep shooting range and record-breaking performances dominate headlines, there's another side fans are beginning to notice: her habit of giving credit where it's due. And no teammate reflects this more than Sophie Cunningham. One clear example came after a tough matchup with the Atlanta Dream. Sophie posted a season-high double-double, 16 points and 10 rebounds, with the kind of relentless energy that can tilt a game. Instead of highlighting her own performance, Caitlin shared Sophie's reel on Instagram with just one word: dog. In basketball culture, that's the ultimate badge of respect, a way of saying you've got grit and heart. Coming from Clark, it was her way of saying, I see you. Her support isn't reserved for big games either. It shows up in daily moments. When Sophie and teammate Lexi Hull posted a playful poolside TikTok, Caitlin jumped in with a cheeky reminder that swimsuit brands should make sure they stayed focused on basketball. It was funny, lighthearted, but also proof their bond extends beyond practices and box scores, and Sophie gives that loyalty right back. She's been one of Clark's fiercest defenders, shutting down critics who doubted her impact on the league. In one viral moment, Sophie snapped, "It really pisses me off when people say she's not the face of the league. Who would be?" She wasn't just defending Caitlin's stats. She pointed to her cultural influence, from sold-out games to record-breaking TV ratings. This cycle of recognition and defense reveals a powerful truth. Chemistry matters. Yes, talent wins games, but trust wins championships. Caitlin's constant praise of Sophie's hustle and leadership proves she understands that lifting teammates is just as important as lighting up the scoreboard. And Sophie, in turn, protects Caitlin from the noise and the hits that come with stardom. Together, their bond tells fans something bigger, that success isn't just about stats or sponsorships. It's about loyalty, trust, and always having each other's backs. For Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham, it's bigger than basketball.